Cole Harlan's hand froze on his saddle horn as the sound drifted across the Colorado foothills. A woman's voice, ragged with fear. 5 years of drifting had taught him to recognize trouble and ride the other way. 5 years of burying his past beneath endless horizons and campfires that never quite warmed the hollow in his chest. The smart choice was clear: mount up and disappear into the gathering dusk. Whatever desperate situation waited beyond those rocks wasn't his concern. He'd learned the hard price of involvement in Dodge City, paid it in blood that wasn't his own. But something in that voice, raw determination beneath the fear, reached past the walls he'd built around what remained of his soul. Cole drew his Colt with practiced ease, the weight familiar in his weathered hand. As he moved toward the sound, a bitter smile touched his lips. Some lessons, it seemed, a man never truly learned. The woman he found was half hidden among the rocks, her wrists and ankles bound with lawman's shackles. Her fine dress, now torn and dust-covered, spoke of money and education. Her eyes, though, those were the eyes of someone who'd seen too much and refused to look away. "Please," she whispered when she saw him, her voice cracked from thirst. "They'll be back soon." Cole glanced at the horizon, measuring the emptiness against the certainty of trouble heading their way. In that moment, standing between a woman who needed saving and the ghosts of his violent past, Cole Harlan faced a choice that would define the man he truly was. Cole Harlan squinted as dawn broke over the Colorado foothills, painting the landscape in hues of amber and gold. 5 years on the drift had taught him to rise before the sun, to claim those quiet moments when a man could almost forget the weight of his past. His weathered hands worked methodically, checking his saddle's cinch strap while his dun gelding snorted impatiently. "Easy, Dust," he murmured, the words hanging in the morning chill. The small fire from last night had burned to embers, just enough heat left to boil coffee in a dented tin pot. Cole poured the black liquid into his cup, savoring the bitter warmth. Out here, on the outskirts of Red Bluff, he could breathe. No one to ask about the scars on his knuckles or the haunted look that sometimes crossed his face when gunfire echoed from the saloon. He'd been riding this way for too long, town to town, ranch to ranch, taking whatever work kept him fed before moving on. Never staying long enough for folks to piece together stories about the gunfighter who'd once ridden with the Wallace gang before everything went wrong in Dodge. Cole packed his meager belongings with practiced efficiency. Another day, another horizon. The lonely rhythm of a life carefully constructed to need no one and be needed by none. That's when he heard it, a faint sound carried on the wind. Not the natural sounds of the frontier morning, but something distinctly human. A cry, perhaps, or a whimper. Cole's hand instinctively moved to the Colt at his hip, muscle memory from a life he'd tried to leave behind. In this country, sounds like that usually meant trouble, and trouble was something Cole Harlan had sworn to avoid. The sound came again, clearer this time, a woman's voice, desperate and pained. Cole hesitated, one foot in the stirrup. The smart play was to ride on, let someone else's misfortune remain someone else's problem. But something in that voice reached past his carefully constructed walls. "Damn it all," he muttered, swinging back down from the saddle. He drew his Colt and moved cautiously toward a cluster of rocks that marked the entrance to a shallow ravine. The sight stopped him cold. A young woman lay half-concealed behind the rocks, her wrists and ankles bound with lawman's shackles. Her dress, once fine but now torn and dust-covered, suggested education and money. Her eyes, though, those were the eyes of someone who'd seen too much. "Please," she whispered when she saw him, her voice cracked from thirst. "They'll be back soon." Cole glanced around, measuring the emptiness. No riders in sight, but fresh hoofprints suggested at least 3 horses had departed recently. He knelt beside her, examining the shackles. Official issue, not the kind outlaws typically carried. "Who did this to you?" he asked, working at the locks with a small pick from his pocket. "My father." The woman's laugh held no humor. "Judge Dane of Red Bluff." The name caused Cole's hands to still momentarily. Judge Amos Dane had a reputation throughout the territory, a man who wielded the law like a weapon. "I found his papers," she continued, words tumbling out urgently. "Land deeds, bribes, evidence of murder. He's been stealing from homesteaders for years. When I confronted him—" She didn't need to finish. The shackles fell away, revealing raw, bleeding skin beneath. Cole offered his canteen, which she accepted gratefully. "I'm Leona Dane," she said after drinking. "And you are?" "Nobody important," Cole replied, helping her to her feet. "Just passing through." Leona's eyes met his, fierce despite her condition. "They'll kill me if they find me. I need to reach Santa Fe. The territorial marshal there, he's beyond my father's influence." Cole felt the familiar tightening in his chest. Other people's troubles led to nothing but grief. "Please," she said, "I can pay you." Cole led Leona back to his camp, keeping his movements measured despite the urgency churning inside him. She stumbled once, her legs stiff from hours in shackles, and he caught her elbow before she fell. "The judge's men, how far behind are they?" he asked, helping her sit beside the remains of his fire. "Hours, maybe less." Leona accepted a piece of jerky from his provisions, chewing slowly. "They went to check another location first, but they'll return when they don't find me." Cole poured the last of his coffee into his cup and handed it to her. The smart play was clear: point her toward Red Bluff, wish her luck, and ride in the opposite direction, fast. "These papers you mentioned," he said instead. "You have them?" Leona reached into her boot and withdrew a folded document. "Just one. The most important. Proof my father ordered the murder of the Tillman family when they refused to sell their homestead." Her voice hardened. 3 children, Mr. Harlan, Cole Harlan. 3 children, Mr. Harlan. The youngest was 4. Cole stared out at the horizon. He'd spent 5 years avoiding other people's fights, keeping his head down, his gun holstered. 5 years running from who he'd been and what he'd done. "Santa Fe is 2 weeks' hard ride," he said finally. "We'd need supplies, fresh horses eventually." Hope flickered across Leona's face. "You'll help me?" Cole didn't answer directly. Instead, he began methodically breaking camp, packing his few possessions. "We'll need to move fast," he said, "and stay off the main trails." It wasn't a smart decision, but watching Leona's determined eyes, Cole realized some decisions weren't about being smart, some were about being human. They rode hard through the morning, keeping to the shadows of rocky outcroppings where possible. Cole led them on a circuitous route away from Red Bluff, doubling back occasionally to ensure they weren't followed. Leona kept pace without complaint, though the rigidity in her posture spoke of pain she wouldn't voice. By midday, when the Colorado sun beat mercilessly overhead, Cole reined in beside a narrow creek sheltered by cottonwoods. The horses needed water, and truthfully, so did they. "We'll rest here," he said, dismounting in one fluid motion. Not long. Leona slid from her saddle with less grace, her legs buckling slightly. Cole pretended not to notice, allowing her dignity as she steadied herself against her horse. "You've done this before," she observed, watching him arrange stones to disguise their tracks near the water's edge. Avoiding pursuit. Cole didn't look up. A time or two. My father will have sent his best men. Sheriff Gaines, probably, and the Layton brothers. The Laytons? Cole's hands stilled momentarily. He knew those names. Hired guns masquerading as deputies, mean as rattlesnakes and twice as deadly. Leona nodded, sinking down beside the creek to splash water on her face. The cool liquid revealed a darkening bruise along her jawline that made Cole's fingers tighten on his canteen. The judge keeps them on special retainer, she said. For problems that require permanent solutions. Like his own daughter? Cole asked quietly. Leona's eyes met his, unwavering. Family loyalty only matters to my father when it serves his interests. She pulled the document from her boot again, unfolding it carefully. This changes everything. Signed confession from his former clerk, detailing the Tillman murders and 12 others. Cole studied her face, the determined set of her jaw, the intelligence in her eyes. No helpless victim, this one, more dangerous perhaps than any pursuer. We should keep moving, he said finally. Tell me about Santa Fe. They made camp that evening in a shallow cave overlooking a valley, the entrance concealed by scrub brush. A cold meal of jerky and hardtack was all Cole dared risk. Even the smallest fire could be spotted for miles. Marshal Burke, Leona said, tracing a map Cole had sketched in the dirt. He's been investigating land fraud in the territory for months. My father's been one step ahead of him, destroying evidence, intimidating witnesses. And you just happened to find the one piece of paper that could hang him, Cole remarked, skepticism evident in his tone. Leona's lips tightened. Not happened. I searched for months, after my mother died last year. She paused, composing herself. The official report said heart failure, but she'd been asking questions about certain properties. Strange how her heart failed the night after she confronted my father. Cole said nothing, just watched her face in the fading light. I kept her journal, Leona continued, used it to piece together what she'd discovered. The clerk was dying of consumption, had nothing to lose by confessing, but everything to lose by living long enough to testify, Cole pointed out. Leona nodded grimly. He died 3 days after signing this, another natural death. Cole leaned back against the cave wall, considering their options. The direct route to Santa Fe would take them through open country, to exposed. The mountain passes would be slower, but offered better cover. We'll head southwest first, he decided. Make them think we're bound for Arizona, then cut east through Crescent Pass. That adds days to the journey, Leona observed. It also keeps us alive. Cole checked his ammunition, 26 rounds for the Winchester, 12 for the Colt. Not enough if it came to a prolonged fight. We'll need supplies. There's a trading post at Broken Ridge. Man named Silas Walker runs it. Can he be trusted? No, Cole said simply. But he owes me a favor. Dawn brought a cold drizzle that turned the trail to mud. They rode in silence, Cole scanning the horizon methodically, Leona lost in thoughts she didn't share. By noon, the weather cleared enough to reveal Broken Ridge in the distance, little more than a cluster of weathered buildings perched on the edge of nowhere. Let me do the talking, Cole said as they approached. Silas is particular about strangers. The trading post stood apart from the other buildings, a sprawling single-story structure with a wide porch. 2 horses were already hitched outside, well-bred animals with quality saddles. Cole felt his muscles tense. Wait here, he told Leona, dismounting and loosening his Colt in its holster. She nodded, understanding without being told to keep her horse ready to run. The floorboards creaked as Cole stepped onto the porch. Through the grimy window, he could make out two men at the counter, one lean and gray-bearded, the other broad-shouldered in a deputy's coat. The door swung open before Cole could reach it. Silas Walker emerged, his weathered face a careful mask, but the warning in his eyes unmistakable. "Been a while, Harlan," he said loudly, then dropped his voice to barely a whisper. "Gaines is inside, looking for the judge's daughter." Cole nodded almost imperceptibly. "Just passing through. Need supplies." "Afraid I can't help you today," Silas responded at normal volume. "Shipment's late. Try Mason's place in Cottonwood." The message was clear. Keep moving. "Obliged," Cole said, turning to leave. "That your woman?" The question came from behind him as the deputy stepped onto the porch, hand resting casually near his gun. Cole kept his movements slow, deliberate. "Just a traveling companion." The deputy's eyes narrowed, shifting to study Leona, who kept her face partially concealed beneath her hat. "Funny coincidence. We're looking for a young woman ourselves." "Lot of people moving through these days," Cole remarked, mounting his horse in one smooth motion. "Good day, gentlemen." As they rode away, Cole could feel the deputy's eyes boring into their backs. "They know," Leona whispered once they were out of earshot. "They suspect," Cole corrected. "There's a difference." He urged his horse to a faster pace. "We need to reach Crescent Pass before nightfall. They'll be right behind us now." Crescent Pass cut through the mountains like a scar, narrow and treacherous. As dusk settled, Cole led them into its shadow, the temperature dropping immediately beneath the towering walls of stone. Far below, a creek rushed over rocks, its sound masking the clop of their horses' hooves on the rocky trail. "We'll make better time tomorrow," Cole said, glancing back at Leona. Her face was drawn with exhaustion, but her back remained straight. "There's a place up ahead where we can rest." The place proved to be little more than a hollow in the cliff face, shielded from view by a stand of stunted pines. Cole dismounted, helping Leona down before tending to the horses. "You've used this spot before," she observed, not a question. Cole nodded, unpacking his bedroll. "A time or two." "Running to something or away from it?" He paused, glancing at her. In the fading light, her eyes seemed to see more than he wanted shown. Both, maybe. They ate sparingly, huddled against the growing chill. Cole kept his rifle across his knees, listening to the night sounds, separating natural from unnatural. "We should reach Walker's Creek by midday tomorrow," he said, breaking the silence. "There's a man there who can get us fresh horses." "Can he be trusted?" Leona asked, the same question as before. This time, Cole actually considered it. "Manuel's honest enough. Doesn't ask questions he doesn't want answered." Leona pulled her coat tighter against the cold. "Will they follow us into the pass?" "Gaines won't," Cole replied. "He knows his limitations. But the Laytons—" He left the thought unfinished. "I'm sorry to have brought this to you," Leona said quietly. Cole studied the shadows beyond their small shelter. "Get some sleep. I'll take first watch." He didn't respond to her apology. What would be the point? They were already in too deep. Morning brought low clouds that clung to the mountain peaks, shrouding the pass in mist. Cole saddled the horses while Leona cleared all signs of their camp, her movements efficient after watching him the day before. "The fog works in our favor," Cole said, as they mounted up. "Harder to track us, harder to spot us from a distance." Leona nodded, tucking a strand of hair beneath her hat. "Unless they're already ahead of us." The thought had occurred to Cole as well. The Laytons knew these mountains. They could have circled around during the night, positioning themselves further along the pass. The trail narrowed as they climbed higher, barely wide enough for the horses to walk single file. To their right, the mountain rose in sheer cliffs. To their left, a drop that would kill horse and rider alike. Cole led, eyes constantly scanning the terrain, every sense alert for danger. The shot came without warning, echoing through the pass. Cole's horse reared as rock splinters flew from the cliff face inches from his head. He drew his colt in one fluid motion, firing twice toward a shadowy outcropping above. "Ride!" he shouted to Leona, spurring his horse forward as another shot kicked up dirt near his mount's hooves. They galloped recklessly along the narrow trail, bullets whining past them. Cole counted 3 distinct shooters. The Layton brothers had brought company. He fired back strategically, not hoping to hit at this distance, but to force their attackers to keep their heads down. The trail forked ahead, one path continuing along the ridge, the other descending sharply toward the creek below. Cole made a split-second decision. "Down!" he called to Leona, gesturing toward the lower path. "Go! I'll hold them here." For a moment, he thought she might argue, but she understood the logic. One target was harder to hit than 2. She wheeled her horse toward the descending trail. "I'll find you," she called back, already disappearing into the mist. Cole dismounted behind a boulder, slapping his horse's flank to send it running along the upper trail, a diversion. He chambered a round in his Winchester, steadying his breathing as approaching hoofbeats signaled his pursuers. 3 riders emerged from the fog, rifles raised. Cole took careful aim at the lead horse and fired. The animal screamed, tumbling forward, throwing its rider to the ground. The other 2 scattered for cover as Cole fired again, then again. The battle for Crescent Pass had begun. Leona urged her horse down the treacherous path, each step sending loose stones clattering into the abyss below. Gunfire echoed from above, Cole buying her time she desperately needed. The path leveled eventually, following the creek through a narrow gorge. She pushed forward, trying to put distance between herself and the fighting. The minutes stretched as she rode, listening for pursuit. When the gunfire finally stopped, her heart sank. Either Cole had escaped, or he hadn't. The silence offered no clues. After an hour, she reined in beside the creek, allowing her exhausted horse to drink. Logic told her to continue to Walker's Creek, alone, to find this Manuel that Cole had mentioned. But something else, loyalty perhaps, or simple human decency, made that impossible. "Come on," she whispered to her mount, turning back toward the fork in the trail. "We're not leaving him behind." The climb was arduous, the horse struggling on the steep incline. Leona dismounted, leading the animal by its reins. Her fine boots, never meant for such terrain, were torn and muddy now. Her hands, once soft from privileged life, were blistered and raw. When she reached the site of the ambush, the scene told its own story. Blood stained the rocks, too much blood, but no bodies remained. A discarded hat lay trampled in the dirt. Not Cole's, she noted with relief, but where was he? Wounded, captured, or simply forced to flee along a different route, she faced a choice now: continue searching or proceed to Walker's Creek where he might find her. "What would you do, Mr. Harlan?" she murmured to the empty air. Cole moved through the underbrush like a shadow, each step measured despite the burning pain in his side. The bullet had only grazed him, tearing flesh but missing anything vital. Still, he'd lost blood, and the chill mountain air did nothing to ease the throbbing. One of the Laytons was dead, thrown from his horse and broken on the rocks below. The other brother and their companion had retreated, but not far. Cole could hear them talking as he crept closer, using the mist as cover. "Judge Dane ain't gonna like this, Vic," the unfamiliar voice said. "Said to bring the girl back alive." "Judge'll understand once we explain," the surviving Layton brother replied. "It's Harlan he really wants anyway." Cole froze at the words, his blood turning colder than the mountain air. "That bounty still standing?" the first man asked. $500, Layton confirmed. "Plus whatever's in that safe his gang cracked in Dodge. Judge figures Harlan knows where it's hidden." "How's the judge even know him?" "They got history. Harlan rode with Tom Wallace's gang for a spell, before he turned yellow and ran." Layton spat. "Judge was backing Wallace. Money laundering, they call it." Cole's mind raced. He'd never met Judge Dane, had no knowledge of any connection to Wallace. But if the judge believed otherwise, if he thought Cole knew about stolen money, it explained why the judge had reacted so violently to Leona's discovery. The Tillman murders were just the surface. This was deeper, older corruption. Cole backed away silently. He needed to find Leona before the Laytons did, before they told her what she'd partnered with. A former outlaw with blood on his hands. Walker's Creek was little more than a settlement, a cluster of adobe buildings huddled against the wilderness, its residents hardened by frontier life. Leona approached cautiously, her horse exhausted from the mountain crossing. The setting sun cast long shadows across the dusty street as she reined in before a small cantina. A weathered sign proclaimed Manuel's in faded paint. This had to be the place Cole mentioned. She hesitated, acutely aware of her disheveled appearance and the danger of drawing attention. "Looking for someone, señorita?" The voice startled her. A Mexican man in his 50s stood in the doorway, wiping his hands on a stained apron, his dark eyes assessing her with quiet intelligence. She began, unsure how much to reveal. "If it's a tall gringo with eyes like winter sky, he is not here," the man continued, glancing meaningfully down the street. "But perhaps he will be, when the shadows grow longer." "Are you Manuel?" Leona asked, relief flooding through her. The man nodded slightly. "Come inside. Too many curious eyes out here." The cantina was empty, save for an old man dozing in the corner. Manuel led her to a back room, offering her a seat at a rough-hewn table. "Cole Harlan sent me," she said, keeping her voice low. "We were separated in Crescent Pass." Manuel's expression revealed nothing. "This man, Harlan, you trust him?" The question gave her pause. Did she trust Cole? A stranger who'd appeared when she needed him most, who'd risked his life for her without explanation. "Yes," she said finally, "I believe I do." Manuel nodded, satisfied. "Then I will tell you. He arrived an hour ago, wounded but not badly, but not. He went to watch the trail in case you were followed." As if summoned by the words, the back door opened, and Cole stepped inside, his side crudely bandaged, his face grim with news she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. "We need to leave," Cole said without preamble. "The Laytons will be here by morning." Manuel frowned. "My cousin has horses. Good ones. But not until dawn." "Then we'll need a place to lie low until then," Cole replied, his eyes meeting Leona's. Something in his gaze had changed, a wariness that hadn't been there before. "What happened on the mountain?" she asked. Cole's jaw tightened. "I killed one of them. The others retreated, but they'll regroup." Manuel disappeared to arrange their hideout, leaving them alone in the small room. The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions. "There's something I need to tell you," Cole finally said, his voice rough. "Something I should have told you from the start." Leona steeled herself. "About your connection to my father?" Surprise flickered across Cole's face. You knew? I suspected. She met his gaze steadily. The way you reacted to his name, the fact that you agreed to help me so readily, most men would have walked away. Cole sank into a chair across from her, wincing as the movement pulled at his wound. I never met your father, but I knew of him. He paused, weighing his words. 5 years ago, I rode with Tom Wallace's gang, not as a gunman, as a scout mostly. I was young, angry at the world. Wallace offered good money. Leona's expression remained neutral, though her hands tightened in her lap. We robbed a bank in Dodge, Cole continued. People died, not by my hand, but that hardly matters. Afterward, I found out Wallace was working for someone bigger, laundering money through legitimate businesses. When I wanted out, things went bad. And the someone bigger was my father, Leona concluded. Cole nodded. According to the Laytons, they think I know where Wallace hid your father's money before things fell apart. That's why they want me alive. The revelation hung between them. Leona studied him, seeing him anew, not just the competent drifter who'd saved her, but a man with his own tangled past. We all have secrets, Mr. Harlan, she said finally. The question is, what we do with them now. Before Cole could respond, Manuel returned, his expression urgent. Riders coming, not the Laytons, different men, but they're asking questions about a woman matching the señorita's description. Cole was on his feet instantly, hand going to his gun. How many? 4, well armed. Is there another way out? Leona asked, already gathering her things. Manuel nodded. Follow me, quickly. They slipped through back alleys, keeping to the shadows as Manuel led them to the edge of town. A small adobe house stood apart from the others, its windows dark. My sister's place, Manuel explained, ushering them inside. She's away. You can stay until dawn. The interior was simple but clean, a single room with a bed, table, and iron stove. Manuel lit a lamp, its soft glow revealing his concerned face. These men asking for you, they wear no badges, but they have the look of law. My father's reach is long, Leona said grimly. Manuel nodded in understanding. I will bring food and news of what happens in town. He hesitated, looking at Cole. The horses will be ready before first light, Eastern Trail, behind the old mission. After he left, Cole checked his ammunition, laying out what remained on the table. 18 rifle rounds, 7 for the Colt. Not enough if it came to a prolonged fight. We should rest while we can, he said, moving to check the windows, the door. Leona watched him, noting the stiffness in his movements, the dried blood on his shirt. Let me see your wound. He started to refuse, then relented, sitting on a wooden chair as she unwrapped the crude bandage. The bullet had carved a furrow along his ribs, angry and red, but not life-threatening if infection was kept at bay. There's whiskey in my saddlebag, he said. Best disinfectant we've got. She worked in silence, cleaning the wound with steady hands. Cole watched her face, the concentration in her eyes, the gentle firmness of her touch. Why did you come back for me? He asked suddenly. On the mountain. You could have gone ahead to Walker's Creek. Leona's hands paused momentarily. The same reason you stayed behind to cover my escape, I imagine. Her eyes met his. Some debts can't be measured, Mr. Harlan. A soft knock at the door startled them awake. Cole was on his feet instantly, gun drawn, while Leona moved silently to the side of the window. Hours had passed. The lamp had burned low. It's Manuel, came a whispered voice. Cole opened the door, cautiously. Manuel slipped inside, his expression grave. They're searching every house, he reported. One of them described the senorita too precisely to be coincidence. "How much time do we have?" Cole asked. "An hour, maybe less." Manuel placed a bundle on the table. "Food for your journey, and this." He handed Cole a folded paper. "A man paid me to give you this if you ever returned." Cole unfolded it, reading quickly, his expression darkening. "When did he leave this?" "3 months ago. He said you might need it someday." Cole passed the note to Leona. The handwriting was cramped but legible. "Harlan, Judge Dane's operation goes beyond land theft. Federal marshals investigating. Money trail leads to Santa Fe Bank. Watch for a man named Blackjack Reed. He works both sides. Morrison." "Sheriff Morrison," Leona whispered. "He knew." Cole nodded grimly, "and he was killed for it." He turned to Manuel. "We need those horses now. We can't wait until dawn." Manuel's expression was apologetic. "They're watching the trails." "Then we'll make our own," Cole replied, checking his gun. "We leave in 10 minutes." They rode through the night, abandoning trails for the open wilderness. Manuel's cousin had provided sturdy horses, but even the strongest mounts struggled with the rough terrain. Ravines choked with scrub oak, rocky inclines that threatened to snap legs with a single misstep. The moon offered just enough light to navigate, though clouds periodically plunged them into complete darkness. Cole led them northeast, away from the expected routes to Santa Fe. Every hour increased the distance between them and Walker's Creek, but he knew pursuit wouldn't be far behind. The men looking for Leona had resources and determination that matched their own. By dawn, exhaustion had settled over them both. Leona swayed slightly in her saddle, dark circles shadowing her eyes. Cole wasn't faring much better. The wound in his side burned with each movement, and the sleepless night had drained what little strength he'd regained. They stopped in a sheltered hollow where a spring bubbled from between rocks, forming a small pool before disappearing underground again. The horses drank gratefully while Cole surveyed their surroundings, gauging defensibility against potential threats. "We need to rest," he said finally, helping Leona dismount. Her skin felt hot to the touch. "I'm fine," she insisted, but her legs buckled as soon as they touched ground. Cole caught her, concern sharpening his fatigue. "You're not fine," he said, lowering her gently against a boulder. "Let me see." She resisted briefly, then relented. Cole pushed up her sleeve, revealing an angry red scratch extending from wrist to elbow, likely from their hasty escape through brambles the night before. The skin around it was swollen, hot to the touch. "It's nothing," Leona said, pulling her sleeve down. "We should keep moving." But Cole had seen enough frontier injuries to recognize the early signs of infection. Without treatment, she wouldn't make it to Santa Fe, or anywhere else. "We stay," he said, his tone allowing no argument. "At least until midday." By noon, Leona's condition had worsened. Fever flushed her cheeks, while chills racked her body. Cole had cleaned the wound as best he could, applying a poultice of chewed herbs he'd learned about from an old Apache scout years ago. It wasn't enough. He dampened his kerchief in the spring water, placing it on her forehead as she drifted between consciousness and fevered dreams. In her lucid moments, she insisted they continue, her determination undiminished even as her strength failed. "They'll find us," she murmured, eyes glassy with fever. "Let them try," Cole replied, checking his rifle for the 100th time. He'd chosen their position well. The hollow was defensible, with clear sight lines in all directions. One man with a good rifle could hold off several attackers at least for a while. But that wouldn't matter if Leona's fever didn't break. He needed medicines they didn't have, skills he didn't possess. As afternoon shadows lengthened, Cole made a decision. In the distance, perhaps 5 miles east, he'd spotted smoke from a chimney that morning. Some isolated homestead or cabin. Civilization meant risk, but it also meant potential help. "I need to go for supplies," he told Leona, during a moment of clarity. "Medicine." She gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't leave." The plea caught him off guard. This woman who'd faced her father's betrayal, who'd endured shackles and pursuit without breaking, now looked at him with naked fear at the thought of being left alone. "2 hours," he promised. "Then I'll be back." Her eyes searched his, looking for the lie. Finding none, she released him, turning her face away. "Go," she whispered. Cole gathered his rifle and canteen, securing the horses where they could graze, but not wander. At the edge of the hollow, he paused, looking back at Leona's huddled form. For the first time in years, someone was counting on him. The weight of that trust felt both foreign and strangely familiar. Twilight had painted the sky in deepening blues by the time Cole returned. He approached cautiously, wary of ambush, but the hollow remained as he'd left it. Leona lay where he'd placed her, motionless, except for the shallow rise and fall of her chest. "Leona," he called softly, kneeling beside her. Her eyes fluttered open, recognition dawning slowly. "You came back." The simple statement carried a weight he couldn't ignore. "I said I would." From his saddlebag, Cole produced his findings: honey, clean bandages, and a small bottle of laudanum purchased from an elderly widow living alone in the cabin he'd spotted. The woman had asked no questions, accepting his story of a wife with an infected cut without comment. She'd even provided dried willow bark for tea to bring down the fever. Cole worked methodically, cleaning the wound again before applying honey and fresh bandages. Leona watched him through half-closed eyes, her breathing labored. "We can't stay here," she said after he'd finished. "They'll find us." "First light," he promised. "We'll move then." She nodded, satisfied, then surprised him by taking his hand. "Thank you." Cole looked down at their joined hands, unsure how to respond. The simple human contact felt alien after years of solitude. Uncomfortable, yet somehow necessary. "You should rest," he said, trying to withdraw his hand. "Please," she whispered, her grip tightening slightly. "Don't." In that moment, something shifted between them. A barrier that had stood firm since their first meeting now wavered, threatening to collapse entirely. Cole felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that had nothing to do with their precarious situation. "Please." Leona's voice barely audible as fever pulled her back toward delirium. "Don't leave me alone." Cole remained still, his hand in hers, watching as exhaustion finally claimed her. The night settled around them, quiet except for the occasional call of a nightjar. For the first time in 5 years, Cole Harlan wasn't alone. And for the first time in 5 years, he didn't want to be. Dawn broke with surprising gentleness, pale light filtering through the branches overhead. Cole stirred from his position against the boulder, his body stiff from the night's vigil. Beside him, Leona slept peacefully, her breathing steady, the flush of fever faded from her cheeks. He checked her wound carefully. The angry redness had receded, the swelling noticeably reduced. The willow bark tea and honey had done their work. "How long have I been asleep?" Leona's voice startled him. "Most of the night," Cole replied, sitting back on his heels. "Your fever broke before midnight." She pushed herself to a sitting position, wincing slightly but moving with more strength than the day before. "We should move." "Eat first," Cole insisted, offering jerky and hardtack from their dwindling supplies. We've got a hard ride ahead." As Leona ate, Cole explained his revised plan. They would continue northeast for another day, then cut southeast toward Santa Fe. It would add time to their journey, but might throw off their pursuers. "How far to Santa Fe now?" she asked. "4 days, maybe 5 at our current pace." Cole studied the map he'd sketched in the dirt. "There's a settlement called Mesa Verde, about 2 days from here." "We can resupply there." Leona nodded, her eyes following his finger across the crude map. "Do you know anyone there?" Cole hesitated. "Yes, Maria Vasquez. She runs the local cantina." He met Leona's questioning gaze. "She helps people who need to disappear for a while." "And she'll help us?" "She might," Cole admitted, "if I can convince her our cause is just." Leona studied him, her expression thoughtful. "You have friends in unexpected places, Mr. Harlan." Cole didn't respond immediately, busying himself with packing their meager supplies. "Not friends, exactly. Just people who owed me a favor, or I owed them." "And Maria Vasquez, which is she?" Cole's expression softened slightly. "Both, I suppose." Mesa Verde appeared on the horizon as the sun began its westward descent 2 days later. The settlement was larger than Walker's Creek, a proper town with a church steeple and buildings arranged in orderly streets. Cole approached cautiously, leading them through a dry creek bed that offered cover until they reached the town's edge. "We'll wait until dark," he decided, studying the movement of people in the distance. Less chance of being recognized. When twilight finally shrouded the landscape, they made their way to a small adobe building set apart from the main street. Warm light spilled from its windows, and the sounds of conversation and occasional laughter drifted into the night. "Wait here," Cole instructed, leaving Leona with the horses in the shadows. "Let me make sure it's safe." Inside, the cantina was half full. Locals mostly, nursing drinks and conversation. Behind the bar stood a woman in her 40s, her black hair streaked with gray, her dark eyes missing nothing. She spotted Cole immediately, her expression revealing nothing, as she motioned him toward a door at the back. "5 years, Harlan," she said when they were alone in her small office. "No word, no letter." "I thought you were dead." "There were times I almost was," Cole replied. "I need your help, Maria." She studied him, arms crossed. "The woman outside, who is she?" Cole's surprise must have shown on his face because Maria laughed softly. "My windows face all directions for a reason." He explained briefly. Judge Dane, the evidence, the pursuers. Maria listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. "You're talking about powerful enemies," she said when he finished. "More powerful than you know." "Will you help us?" Maria sighed, uncrossing her arms. "Bring her in. You both look like you could use a proper meal and a real bed." Cole nodded gratefully. "We'll be gone by morning." "No," Maria countered. "You'll stay 2 nights. Rest, resupply properly. Then I'll have my nephew guide you through the canyon pass. It's the safest route to Santa Fe now." The second evening in Mesa Verde brought an unexpected visitor to Maria's cantina. Cole noticed him immediately, a tall man with a distinctive limp who took a table in the corner, his hat pulled low. Something about his posture, the way he surveyed the room while pretending not to, set Cole's instincts on edge. "Who is he?" he asked Maria quietly as she brought their dinner to the private back room where they'd been staying. Maria glanced through the partially open door. "Never seen him before. Came in about an hour ago asking for directions to Santa Fe." Cole exchanged a look with Leona. After 2 days of rest, she had regained much of her strength, the wound on her arm healing cleanly. "I don't like it," Cole said. "We should leave tonight instead of waiting for morning." Maria nodded. "I'll tell Miguel to ready the horses." She slipped out, returning minutes later with her nephew, a young man barely out of his teens, but with the weathered look of someone who knew the land intimately. "The Canyon Pass," Miguel explained, sketching a route on paper. "Very narrow in places, but hidden. We can reach it by midnight if we leave now." They packed quickly, Cole keeping watch through the window as Maria prepared supplies. The stranger in the main room remained at his table, seemingly engrossed in his drink. As they slipped out the back door toward the waiting horses, Cole grabbed Maria's arm. "Thank you," he said quietly. She smiled, the expression softening her features. "There's still some good in you, Harlan. I always knew it." They mounted in silence, Miguel leading them away from town through a stand of cottonwoods. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamond dust. They had ridden perhaps 2 miles when the shots came, 3 in rapid succession. Miguel's horse reared, throwing its rider before bolting into the darkness. "Ambush!" Cole shouted, drawing his rifle as riders emerged from the trees ahead. The distinctive silhouette of the limping man was among them. "Go!" Cole shouted to Leona, firing his Winchester toward the attackers. "Follow the canyon trail." Leona hesitated only a moment before spurring her horse east toward the narrow pass Miguel had described. Cole provided covering fire, forcing their ambushers to scatter for cover. He counted 5 riders, the limping man, and 4 others. Professional manhunters by the look of them, not the Laytons or the sheriff's men. These were something worse, men who killed for money alone. Cole emptied his rifle, downing 1 attacker before retreating, spurring his horse to follow Leona's path. Bullets kicked up dirt around him as he rode, bent low over his mount's neck. The canyon entrance loomed ahead, a jagged split in the rock face barely wide enough for a horse. He caught up to Leona just inside the narrow passage. Moonlight filtered down between towering walls of stone, casting everything in silver and shadow. Their horses' labored breathing echoed in the confined space. "Miguel?" Leona asked, her face pale in the dim light. "I don't know," Cole admitted. "We can't go back for him." The sound of pursuing hoofbeats forced them deeper into the canyon. The path twisted and turned, sometimes so narrow they had to proceed single file, other times opening into small clearings where moonlight reached the sandy floor. After nearly an hour, the sounds of pursuit had faded. Cole reined in beside a small pool fed by a trickle of water seeping from the rock wall. "We should rest the horses," he said, dismounting stiffly. The wound in his side had reopened during their frantic ride, a spreading stain darkening his shirt. Leona nodded, sliding from her saddle. "Who was that man? The one with the limp?" "Blackjack Reed," Cole replied grimly. "Has to be. Morrison's note warned us about him." "How did he find us?" Cole's expression hardened. "Someone in Mesa Verde sold us out." "Maybe Maria. Maybe someone else who recognized me." "What now?" "Now we ride for Santa Fe," Cole said, checking his remaining ammunition. 6 rifle rounds, 4 for the Colt. "And we trust no one else." Santa Fe rose from the desert like a mirage, its adobe buildings glowing golden in the late afternoon sun. They approached cautiously, having circled wide to avoid the main roads where Blackjack Reed and his men might be watching. 3 days had passed since the ambush, 3 days of hard riding and little rest. Both Cole and Leona were exhausted, their supplies almost gone. The evidence, the precious document that had started their journey, remained secure in Leona's boot, creased and worn, but intact. "The federal marshal's office is near the plaza," Cole said as they skirted the town's edge. We'll approach from the north, try to avoid being seen." But as they neared the outskirts, Cole reined in sharply. A familiar figure stood beside the road ahead. Maria Vasquez, her expression grim. "Don't shoot," she called, raising empty hands. "I've come to warn you." Cole kept his rifle trained on her. "Last time you helped us, Black Jack Reed was waiting." "It wasn't me," Maria insisted. "Miguel. They caught him before he reached you. Made him talk." Pain crossed her features. "They killed him afterward." Cole's aim didn't waver. "Why should I believe you now?" "Because Reed and his men are waiting at the marshal's office," she replied. "6 of them, and the marshal is away, called to Albuquerque yesterday on urgent business." "Too convenient," Cole said skeptically. "It's the truth." Maria stepped forward slowly. "Judge Dane arrived this morning. He's staying at the governor's residence, claiming he's here on official territorial business." This caught Leona's attention. "My father is here. In Santa Fe?" Maria nodded. "He knows you're coming." "The whole town is being watched." Cole and Leona exchanged glances, weighing their options. Without the marshal, presenting the evidence would be meaningless. There was no one with the authority to act on it. "We need to leave," Cole decided. "Try again when the marshal returns." "No," Leona's voice was firm. "We didn't come this far to run now." She turned to Maria. "Is there another way? Someone else who could help us?" Maria hesitated, then nodded. "Judge Warren. He's the senior territorial judge, above your father in authority. He lives on the north side of town." "Can we trust him?" Cole asked. "He and your father have been rivals for years," Maria replied. "If anyone would stand against Amos Dane, it's Clayton Warren." Cole considered their options, then made his decision. "Lead the way. But know this. If it's another trap, you won't walk away from it." Maria met his gaze unflinchingly. "Some debts can only be paid once, Harlan. This is me paying mine." Judge Clayton Warren was not what Cole had expected. The man who greeted them in his study was elderly but sharp-eyed, his manner direct as he examined the document Leona presented. "This is Thomas Morrison's signature," he confirmed, studying the confession. "And these dates, locations, they match unsolved cases going back years." He looked up at Leona. "Your father will deny everything, claim this was coerced." "The clerk who signed it is dead," Leona acknowledged. "Convenient timing." Warren nodded grimly. "Amos Dane has powerful friends. But this," he tapped the paper, "this gives me enough to convene a grand jury, to ask questions that have needed asking for a long time." "He won't let it get that far," Cole warned. "He has men watching for us, professional killers." Warren's expression hardened. "This is Santa Fe, Mr. Harlan, not some lawless settlement. I have authority here." He moved to his desk, writing quickly on official letterhead. "This is a writ authorizing the territorial militia to provide protection until the marshal returns." Cole took the document skeptically. "Black Jack Reed won't care about a piece of paper." "Perhaps not," Warren conceded. "But Colonel Sayers and his 20 militiamen will make him care." Events moved swiftly after that. Within hours, the territorial militia had secured the courthouse. Judge Warren convened an emergency hearing presenting the evidence against Amos Dane. Faced with the damning testimony of his own daughter and the written confession of his former clerk, Judge Dane's carefully constructed empire began to crumble. Black Jack Reed and his men attempted one final desperate attack on the courthouse, only to be met by the combined force of the militia and the newly returned marshal. When the dust settled, Judge Amos Dane stood in chains before the court, his face a mask of hatred as his crimes were read aloud. Justice, so long denied, had finally found its voice. For Cole Harlan, watching from the back of the crowded courtroom, the moment brought not triumph, but a quiet peace. The ghosts that had driven him for 5 years seemed, at last, to fade. Beside him, Leona stood tall, her hand finding his as her father was led away. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Cole looked down at their joined hands, then back to her face. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to consider a future beyond the next horizon. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'd like to find out." Standing together before the territorial court, Cole and Leona weren't just survivors, but proof that love must be fought for, with blood, with tears, and with the soul of a man who had once been lost to loneliness. The Western frontier has always been a place where men like Cole Harlan tried to outrun their past, believing that enough distance might somehow erase what haunted them. But as Cole discovered through his journey with Leona, the geography of redemption isn't measured in miles. It's measured in choices, in moments when we decide whether to keep running or finally turn and face what follows. Throughout this story, we've witnessed a man convinced that emotional isolation was his only protection, gradually discovering that his greatest strength lay in the very vulnerability he feared. Cole's transformation wasn't sudden or easy. It came in small moments. Choosing to help Leona when walking away would have been simpler, returning for her on the mountain rather than saving himself, caring for her when fever threatened to take her, and finally standing beside her to face corruption that seemed too powerful to defeat. What resonates most deeply about Cole's journey is how universal it feels, despite the historical setting. We all build walls to protect ourselves from past wounds. We all face moments when doing what's right seems impossibly hard. And many of us know the particular loneliness that comes from believing we don't deserve connection because of who we've been or what we've done. The frontier stripped away pretense, forcing people to reveal their true character when facing danger. Our modern world may look different, but we still encounter those pivotal moments when we must choose between comfort and courage, between self-protection and standing for something greater than ourselves. In crafting Cole and Leona's story, I found myself reflecting on how healing often comes through the very things we fear most: trust, vulnerability, connection. Cole didn't erase his past. He redeemed it by choosing differently when given another chance. His journey reminds us that redemption isn't about escaping who we were, but about becoming who we might yet be. Thank you for riding this trail with Cole and Leona, for witnessing a lonely cowboy discover that the soul he thought he'd lost was simply waiting to be reclaimed through acts of courage and moments of connection. Stories like these only truly live in the hearts of those willing to walk alongside flawed characters as they fight their way towards something better. I wonder what moment in your own life has required the kind of courage Cole found, that crossroads where doing what was right cost more than seemed reasonable. We all carry these pivotal moments that tested our character. If you're willing, share yours in the comments below. Our personal stories of courage deserve to be honored, whether they happened on a frontier or in the everyday battles we all face. If Cole's journey from isolation to connection resonated with you, I'd appreciate that like button and invite you to subscribe for more tales of redemption and courage from the American frontier. The West may be gone, but the truths it revealed about human nature remain as relevant as ever. Until our trails cross again, may you find strength in the connections you forge and peace in the choices you make.